Welcome back to the Touching Base podcast. We're finding a rhythm here. I mean, more guests as we get deeper into October, and for the Mariners fans, it's the start of kind of a new beginning. Bright or not, it's a new beginning. I'm here today, joined by Jason Puckett. He's going to be talking a little bit of a chaos ball as we start this new addition to the channel. Puck, I mean, he's been a role in Seattle sports radio for over 20 years, formerly a host of Seattle's KJR Sports Radio, and now hosting his own podcast at Puck Sports, welcoming predominantly names that play a big role in the Mariners franchise as far as the media is concerned. You have Ryan Divish, Brad Adams, Bill Kruger, so a lot of good, deep insight, and it's an honor to have him here on our channel, because I got a lot of questions. So I encourage everybody to go check his podcast out at pucksports.com. Jason, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. How are you? Everything good?
No, I'm having a heart attack after the season. Like, what's going to happen next?
You're like all of us, right? That's the part of being a Mariners fan. It's never easy, and it's you expect the worst to happen, right?
You expect the worst, and then you're surprised when things go well, like 2022.
Correct. Exactly right. I mean, how old are you, Chad?
I'm 30.
Oh, okay, you're 30. I mean, I'm 48. I mean, I've got 18 years on you on this one. I mean,
of misery.
I go with it is misery. Mm-hmm. I mean, I go into every season thinking, oh, this is the year. I mean, and I'll do it again next year because I'll get, these TV guys that go down to Peoria and they do the same stupid shot every year that gets me like, where I need to go have a smoke and alone time is, where these guys are coming out, from their locker room, from the clubhouse, and the cleats are on the ground and making that noise. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's baseball season again. And I got a good feeling about him. If this guy works out, if that guy works out, if he reverts back to the way he was 5 years ago, he'll be good. And then, by midway through the season, I'm disappointed again.
Yeah, and the new guys are always old guys. So you're like, oh, we got this guy. Remember he was so good in 2016? You're like, okay.
Well, exactly right. It's annoying. It's annoying to be a fan of them because it's these little stop gaps that they do, and they don't really actually fix the problem. Instead of a geyser of a leak, it's a slow drip, and then eventually that slow drip just turns into the massive geyser, and I don't know. They've had a hole at certain positions for a long time and just haven't been able to fix it. Yeah, second base. I mean, all of it. I mean,
yeah.
You go back and look at this, Chad. I mean, go back and look at what DePoto said at the end of the year. And, again, this is a guy, I think he's done a lot of good stuff. And I feel like we always have to say that. But at the same time, we used to use this phrase a lot of times on the radio and then even on the new venture here, is he moves the goalposts, and he does it all the time. And he moves it year after year after year after year, just keeps pushing it down the line. And this past year, he goes on and, we're real close. We just have a few positions to upgrade. You have your entire infield to upgrade. That's not a few positions. You have to upgrade at third.
That is
a few. You have to upgrade at second. You have to upgrade at first. You have to upgrade at DH. I'd make a strong argument you have to upgrade at shortstop. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's your entire infield.
I like the fact that you said that because I was going to touch on something. I was waiting to get some pushback, so that makes me feel a little bit better.
He's had one good year, Chad.
2020?
That's it. He's had one good. Well, was that that was in COVID, right?
Or 2023 when he did 16th in the MVP.
It's last year. It's
last year.
Yeah. I mean, he just and I love. Again, this is like the disclaimer. Everybody loves JP. No one says they don't, but they don't get much out of him offensively. He's a team leader and all that, and people look up to him and fine, but. I mean, I don't care if you're really a team leader. You got to produce, and he hasn't produced.
And I think that's a flaw with Seattle fans, and that is the reason why we keep coming back. So Jerry, he keeps pushing that goalpost back, but he's an expert, and I mentioned this on yesterday's podcast with TJ, he is an expert of feeding hope. He knows how to place his words besides 54%. He still finds ways to feed hope into the Mariners system and then talks up players that he acquires that nobody has on their radar. And then we also buy into the fact that we get emotionally attached to players. So like I, for some reason, really love Josh Rojas, but I also understand we could do so much better.
Yeah, I mean, as much as people were belly aching about Josh Rojas and not a Gold Glove third baseman, I mean, okay, great. I mean,
Hmm.
so what? I mean, there's no production at third base.
No.
That's a power position. It's supposed to drive in runs. It's offensive. It's an offensive position that
Hmm.
he's not that guy. And I'm glad that he can feel the position, but that's not why you have a third baseman. I mean, obviously it's part of it, but it's not the main reason.
No, absolutely. And I think that most teams follow that idea because that is pretty much, I think, the unspoken rule about third base. And I guess I'll start at third base. No, I was going to start at catcher, but let's start at third base just because it kind of rolls in with JP. I had a thought. So, JP, everybody loves him. I think he's good for the clubhouse. I think good clubhouse chemistry and charisma morale is important, especially with this team. Unfortunately, his offense obviously was terrible this year. I don't. I also don't think that he is the best option for shortstop. Given this last year, his range was not there, and I kind of winced and cringed every time I saw a ball that was just a few inches outside of his reach. Where it's like I feel like most guys would be able to get this. And looking at free agents at third base, you have realistically, major league level, you have two options. You have Alex Bregman, who's going to want more than 20 mil. No, I don't even think we should do it with just out of respect for what he was part of with the Astros. And his whole persona changed after he got caught. It's like, all right, do we really want to dig deep into a player with that kind of history at that level of money? And he's still not even playing what he used to play as far as batting ability. And then the other one is Solano. And everybody who pushes back on me on that one is he's old. And to me, it's like I don't want to take age into consideration entirely to write off somebody because we saw Justin Turner show up and I'm pretty okay with the way he performed. I really am. And Solano, he's been consistent the last 6 years. I mean, I pulled up his stats. I would rather be verbatim rather than just riff it. Let's just say the last 3 years. Last 3 years, and with that said, so everybody can kind of see and you can see as well. 2022 ended his season 284 average, 282 average the next year. This year 286. He's a Luis Ariz level contact hitter. No, he's not powerful. He's not going to hit home runs, and I know that's the idea of a third base is something power. But I always fall back on third base right now at this current state. If you're looking for a huge big bat that is going to hit home runs, it's going to be an easy defensive position just to get them on the lineup. Everybody has them on lockdown. Cleveland has J-Ram. They're never going to let him go. Twins have a cheap option with Royce Lewis. I don't think they're going to let him go. He's still in arbitration. Anybody who's a significant bat like Mark Vientos, especially this year, not going to be let go, even though he has control if we were to make a trade. At this point, it's like, and in our ballpark, which is a pitcher's ballpark, go for somebody who has contact. That's my stance on it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I get that sentiment. I mean, I just look at the age though, and I mean, this is what I'm talking about though. We're just replacing another older guy
Mm-hmm.
in his position. He's 36 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not. I know people are fans of Justin Turner. It's a great story. He's 40.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think you can do better than Justin Turner. And I think you should, and this is also a problem of where these guys have been in the last few years because they should have been addressing this 2 years ago. And now you get stuck in these situations. Yeah, I mean, I don't, there's nothing free agent wise out there on the market. I mean, you're going to probably have to look at a trade, but the problem with that is if you want anybody of significance, now you're going to give up one of these, these young guys on the staff. And I don't think anybody wants to give up, a young pitcher on the staff. I mean, I don't. I don't want to part with any of them. I mean, I think the only one that I would swallow would be Castillo, but just because of the age and the money that you're owed to him.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of free agency wise, yeah, you have nothing there.
And of course, he can always veto that trade because he has no
He
trade
can.
clause until next year.
Yeah, he can.
So,
Yeah. But I would think if you give him an opportunity to go place, I mean, these guys lift their no trade clauses all the time. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think that, depending on what the situation would be, he's already been paid. It's not like he needs to put up numbers to get paid. If that was a different scenario, it was like, well, no, I need to stay here because it's a pitcher's park, then do that. But yeah, they've done this to themselves in just in terms of the issues that they have at multiple positions, and third base being a high, highlighting one of those. I mean, maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks don't pick up the club option on Suarez. It would just be hilarious to bring him back. But it goes back to that trade. There was no need for it. There was no need for it. It didn't work. It didn't make your team better. It made it worse. And because why? You didn't want to pay him money, and he came in a few pounds overweight. Okay. But really, I mean, they
He
want
wasn't
to
Josh Naylor bad.
yeah, they want to sell. They want to sell you on the well. He didn't work hard enough. BS. Yeah. It wasn't that they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah.
That's why they got rid of him.
Yeah.
And that's why I have zero confidence that they'll do anything in free agency this year.
I don't have much confidence, but I also like to throw out to the world, hey, this seems realistic, and there's not. This is the reason why I talk to a lot of people, because it's like, tell me why, besides the obvious of they just don't want to spend money, but why would this not be conducive to the budget that we have, the players we have, the positions and holes that we need to fill? And I kind of laugh at everybody who, not in a rude way, but everybody's like, Christian Walker, we should get him, put him at first, that's gonna solve all of our issues. Like, well, first of all, are you just looking at his like contract this year? And I specifically had to look into this because I was like, okay, 10 mil. Yeah, I guess I can see what you're talking about. No, he's projected AAV at 22 mil now after this last season. So people don't really grasp that he's double his worth now. He's in the top 3 as far as first baseman. It's just not realistic, and what's the point of spending all of your increase in money? Because Jerry said that we're going to increase payroll. My guess, it's just for the arbitration guys. And if you do increase it, and it is 20 mil, you really want to give it to one guy because you messed up and put all your eggs in a basket on a guy you ended up DFAing and then letting the media tell him before you told him. Same with your coach. Like, there's a lot of mistakes happening that's coming to light. And a lot of gaslighting from this ownership saying, nobody from our end said anything. Very few people knew about it. Well, if few people knew about you leaking information, you should be able to narrow it down. And it's not looking good. And then players like him aren't going to want to come to an organization where they have a messy room and they refuse to clean it up. They just decide to throw it underneath the bed. Bad analogy, but.
No, I mean, I get you. I mean, they've got multiple problems in terms of what they do on the free agent front. I mean, there's a lot of issues. One, it's a lack of finances from this ownership group that wants to spend on guys. Okay, that's one. Two, and they've told you that.
Yeah.
I mean, the owner of the team told you that.
It's a strategy.
They don't want to pay them.
Yeah.
He said that. And to me, that should dominate this offseason, where the owner of the baseball team just said, we this is not a strategy. We don't sign free agents. Okay. All right. So then we just, fine. We'll just not get anyone on the free agent market in a sport and in a league where there is no salary cap. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. All right. And you're worth $2.3 billion is your organization. So, all right. That makes a lot of sense.
Did it go up this year? I saw last year it was 2.3 billion. Is it up?
Oh, I mean,
more?
it's you don't get those probably. I'm just basing it on last year. You don't get those Forbes valuations till usually around spring training. But
yeah, okay.
I mean,
that's fair. I just wondering because they, like they're number 10 as far as revenue in baseball, and yet they're 15th in spending.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will go up. I'm sure the evaluation of it will go up, and I'm sure that the revenue will go up, despite attendance being slightly down. But it wasn't that much. It was slightly down. So I think for free agency, it's going to be, I think the lack of them wanting to spend, and I think for offensive players, I mean, the most damning thing that happened to them this year is Teoscar Hernandez saying what he said at the All-Star game. I mean, it's just people. There's the reputation is that they don't want to come here. Offensive players do not want to come here because it's a bad park to hit in.
And Garber was
Teoscar's
proof.
yeah, Teoscar's sitting up there and he's just telling you. He's like, why? Why? I mean, something's wrong with the batter's box. Whether any of this is true, I mean, that's what he thinks. There's something wrong with the backdrop. It's hard to hit there. Balls die. I mean, some of that stuff is fairly obvious, especially in the beginning of the season. It's why the players have advocated for years: close the roof. Close the roof. The ball will travel more. They refuse to do it. I get in the summer why you don't want to do it because it's nice out. I don't understand why in the beginning of the season when there's it's not raining, just close it no matter what.
Have a temperature minimum. Like if it's not
Just close it.
under 70, if it's not over 70, keep it closed.
Sure, but so I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into why they can't attract free agents, and so there's two, right? There's one, I don't think people want to come here. Two, it's they don't want to pay, and I think three, I think they have a reputation issue with Jerry Dipoto. I don't think he's well liked around baseball. I don't think he's well liked around agents that control these guys. And then I think it's a non-starter to get these guys to even come here or to even entertain the idea to come here. But number one, and I'll shut up, Chad. Number one, the root of the issue is this ownership group is not serious about winning.
No, and I think that's obvious. And so I guess I try to look at the possibilities and throw ideas out there and like try to come up with plans and then explore those options with other people that I know through the eyes of if you were I would say GM, but president of baseball operations, whatever weird title you want to give yourself. And that's where, and you're completely right as far as all those issues. And it's like, we still, of course, are like, well, what if? Well, what if? Well, maybe, oh, if we just, Santa comes and delivers a bucket of money. Like, if he won the lottery and then was told you can't use this for your own personal gain, you have to put it in the team, what could we do with it? And they're not going to sign players. So, I mean, what about this idea? Because I just researched this today. I was kind of looking into it, and it's a very small sample size, so obviously it doesn't really hold much weight. But moving JP to third base for now, because his range defensively has decreased. In fact, there's only been 2 seasons in his entire career where at at shortstop, he has actually a positive defense. So it was defensive runs value. See if I want to quote this right. Where he started with the Phillies as a third baseman and then went back 3 years later as a third baseman. And both of those times, he was good. He had nearly 1,000% fielding percentage. So his defensive runs saved on average, although he only played a total at third base of 173 and 2/3 innings of his career at third, he still has a 71 for his rating as far as defensive runs saved. And then at the second time was a 16, where the season before he played shortstop, he had a negative 16. And this year has been the best in the last 5 years, where he got 12 defensive runs saved at shortstop, which is fine and dandy. But I also saw, not exactly the greatest. He had 3 errors. He only turned 36 double plays versus the year before he had 62. Before that, he had 70. Before that, he had 89. Move him over to third, and then shortstop. Hell, give Dylan Moore a chance. Instead of just being the super utility guy on the side, he did amazing this year defensively. I think we should give up on the idea of the whole left side infield being a power bat or finding a way to get a power bat. Obviously, for the reasons you mentioned. But wow, what do you think?
I mean, I'm open to anything. I mean, I just, whether maybe at third or, I think even when they had that influx of shortstops that were coming up a few years ago, the free agent guys, we talked about, moving them over, to second base would be an option there. But sure, I mean, I'm not really sold on Dylan Moore playing full time. I think Dylan Moore gets exposed if he plays full time. I mean, I like the role that he's in. I mean, it's You see, but him getting a Gold Glove, at least being a finalist for all the positions he can play. I think a guy like that is valuable on the team. I think you need guys like that. I think if you give him full time role, I think ultimately he'll be exposed as a player. But I mean, at this point, I would throw anything at the wall to see if it sticks, to
Yeah.
try and make these guys better. But I just don't know. Unfortunately, I just think it's going to be another season unless they pull off a trade with one of these young guys. But I'll take them for their word that they're not going to trade them. They're going to have to solve this internally, and that's where they're going to bank on Julio not having another down year, and I think that they're going to bank on JP reverting back to 2023. I think that's ultimately, I think that's their offseason plan, and I think that's their goal. That those two guys just revert back to what they were, and then they got Randy Arozarena for a full year and Victor Robles for a full year, and then that will be all they need
For the outfield, at least. I think.
No, I just think for the team.
In
I think
general?
I just think that's what I think that's their thinking with the team. Because I mean, look at the free agent. There's no good free agents. Number one, there's nobody good.
No.
I mean, there are. Well, let me backtrack. There
yeah.
are, but they're not going to get them.
Yeah, they're the ones that are good are expensive, and they're going to be even more expensive because of the only ones.
They're not going to get Juan Soto. No. They're not getting Paul Goldschmidt. They're not getting Teoscar Hernandez.
I wouldn't want Paul Goldschmidt.
They're not getting Pete Alonso. You mentioned Bregman. They're not getting him. I mean, okay, that's it. Okay, then Josh Bell's a free agent. Gleyber Torres at second. I mean, it would just go on. I mean, that's it.
So
they're not going to get those guys.
I thought about it, and I'm not totally out on Gleyber Torres. I mean, they seem to, if they do spend money on specific players in the past, it seems like they go out and spend money on second base. I mean, it was just Robinson Cano and then Polanco. I mean, it was a trade deal, but they knew what they were getting into.
Colton Wong.
Yeah, that was. We don't speak of him. So, I'm not totally out on Gleyber Torres, but if you want to pick up if they were to spend any players just to feed the crowd, it's that hope side of Jerry that makes me think, okay, he might actually do something, just so fans are like, okay, well, this is nice. We like to see this. You don't spend the money on Christian Walker because they're gonna be like, that's it. But players who are free agents, again, old as hell, so that means to me that it's probably going to be a typical Jerry signing, typical Mariner signing of guys out of their prime. Bringing back Justin Turner and also getting JD Martinez as your DH. Putting Garver as just a backup catcher every 3 games whenever you're facing a lefty. And
it's an expensive backup catcher.
Yeah, but what choice do you have with Garver? He costs way too much to be traded because he's one of the worst batting catchers in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they do with the two Mitches. I mean, they're going to eat one of them. I just don't know which one they're going to eat.
I feel like they don't have another backup for Cal, and I think they need to give Cal a break, because if he keeps going every season like he did this year, where he's redlining, you're crumbling your star.
Yeah, but why? But think about this in just a weird way, Chad. Why do they care? If they're not going to re-sign him, why do they care?
Do you think they're not going to re-sign him?
No, I don't think there's a chance he resigns in Seattle. Not a chance.
Because of Boris?
Well, there's never been a contract extension offered to him. What are they waiting for? I mean, wouldn't you have given him? Wouldn't you have approached him yet? They haven't even approached the guy about anything.
Yeah,
and that's I have Ryan Divish on my show, and no indication they've approached him about anything. No talks of a contract extension. I just think as long as that go, and they've done this with a lot of younger players. They've Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez. They approached all the pitchers about it. And they just, some bid on it. Evan White obviously bid on it. Some don't buy it on it. And if they had at least approached it with Cal, this would have been out by now. I just think as longer it goes, that I think it's bad news for people that love him, want him to stay. That I don't think he will. I think he loves it here. I hope when you play this back a year from now, and go, look at this idiot, he's wrong. I hope to be wrong about it. I want 2 years from now. I want to be wrong. I want that guy here forever. He's the best catcher in this organization's history. He's
Yeah.
everything that you want in a player, in a catcher, in a leader, everything. But his family's back east. He grew up being a Red Sox fan. He adored Jason Varitek. It just feels like
He's probably
eventually
going to kick out Connor Wong.
he
Take
finds
his
him.
spot.
He just finds himself there.
Yeah.
And I think that they have him on such a club-friendly deal, especially this year when he's making what, $790,000,
Yeah.
and then his arbitration will go up $5 million, $6 million.
Deservedly.
Oh yeah, but that's even a bargain. He's the
Yeah.
best catcher in baseball.
Yeah.
And what motivation do they have to not run him into the ground? They don't owe him any money, not real money. I think he'll catch the most innings next year again. He'll appear in the most games again next year because one, to your point, I mean, do you trust putting Garver in there? No.
No, I don't trust putting him in there permanently as like a long-term thing. Days off kind of guy. I just look at his contract. It's like you just can't like. I wouldn't DFA him because nobody's gonna pick him up.
Right,
So
right.
you don't even have a backup for
Right.
Cal because Zavala's gone. You call up Harry Ford, who then now you've started his contract, and now you're gonna lose him sooner when you don't need to. You're already paying for a guy that can play catcher, and at that point, it's the same mentality. Why not use Garver as a backup? Because who cares what happens to him? Because he's gonna be gone.
Yeah. No,
And-
I agree with you on the Mitches. I mean, the one that remains is Garver.
Yeah, I would like to think that Haniger would stick around for spring training, maybe put on a nice show, and then they attempt to either DFA him or he is encouraged to take his player option to go to free agency or something like that to build his rapport, and then someone picks him up. Because honestly, even if he did amazing in spring training, which doesn't hold a lot of value, there's no room for him. Especially
Well, I mean,
with,
he's going to pick up his option. He's going to get paid. He's not going to say to the team, "I'm not going to exercise my option."
what's his buyout? Isn't it $5 million?
$5 million for him?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so, but I'll double check. I don't think it is. I mean, they owe him $17 million.
I was just thinking, if his buyout is just like, nope, we don't need you, you're gone. I don't have it pulled up.
No, I don't. He just has the player option for $17 million.
There's no buyout in there?
There's no buyout for that.
Okay.
They owe him $17 million. So, and he's not in the business of getting. None of these guys are in the business of giving money back. And on top of that, early in his career, he was mad that he wasn't getting paid by them. So he's not going to turn around and go, "Oh, I'll give you a discount." Now.
This is my collection fee.
Sorry that you guys paid me this money. I mean, this is, it was a terrible signing, right? But everybody could have told you back then when they signed it or with the trade that it was terrible. And I want to hear about the money that they saved with Robbie Ray. Whatever.
That's all it was.
But again, you're taking on a guy that couldn't play, and again, everybody loves him, and he's great, and he's a fan favorite. We understand, but I mean, he was, couldn't play. He was not healthy.
And that's the thing. It's like, so nothing really to go with that, unless you bundle him with a bunch of prospects to get something else, just a salary dump. But I do like this idea of JD Martinez, unless the Mets pick him back up, which they might. They'll probably offer him more. But if they weren't going to re-sign him and they were going to go a different route, JD, he has a long history in the majors. Let's put it this way. He has a lower batting average than Justin Turner this season, but he has a much higher slugging and OPS. So give and take what you got there. Bring back Turner. You have a DH. You have a first baseman. And on top of that, with JD Martinez's history, specifically at T-Mobile Park, I mean, I'm kind of impressed. I didn't know this. I just kind of was like, well, let's see what he's got. And he's got a 945 OPS since 2013 to 2024. He has 138 at-bats, 6 doubles, 29 base hits, 9 home runs. I mean, he's walked 14 times, a batting average of 319 in Seattle. was slugging at 558. Those are hard numbers to find out of anybody
Sure.
who's had that many plate appearances in Seattle. I wouldn't be against it, although I also understand he probably would say no because he only signed with the Mets because he didn't want to be considered washed up and be able to hit this
Right.
season, and it worked
Right.
out for him. So, I mean, it's like we're in this big dilemma of who to pick up and everything. So first base is still a big question mark. Rayleigh's not going to play there every day.
No,
So
but that's why that I think that they're going to do or maybe attempt to do with the idea that you've talked about a couple of times now. I mean, I think that they will try if they can. I think an option would be to have Rayleigh and Turner just platoon there.
so you think they are going to bring back Turner? Because some
I
people are
mean,
against it,
well,
or
I
you
mean,
don't think they will.
I think I certainly think that they are contemplating it. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's not expensive.
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
funny
this
because
this
most people
whole
are like, bring
game.
back Turner to coach, but not play. And we're like, why?
Yeah, this whole offseason for them is about saving money. And when Stanton and Dipoto talk about, the payroll going up, and you touched on it earlier, and you're right, it's not because of what they're going to do in free agency. It's
Mm-mm.
because of all these guys, and this is what makes what they've done the last 2 years so maddening because they've had all these cost control players and they wasted it by not going out and supplementing their roster with free agents that they could pay, knowing that they had to pay these guys eventually. And then, really that's why they didn't do it because they knew these guys were going to come up. And so this year they're hitting the fan, right? I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's Cal Raleigh, it's Logan Gilbert's going to get a bump. George Kirby's going to get real money for the first time. Randy Rosarena's going to get money. Julio's contract goes up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just on and on and on. And they unfortunately they did this to themselves.
Which is the reason why I think that Castillo is, even though it would be a fight, and I know the ball's in his court, I still think they're going to try anything they can to move him so they can keep the young pitching. And I don't know. I honestly, I hate it. I'm against it. I think it's stupid, but it's such a Mariner thing. They're going to Robbie Ray him.
Yeah, I don't mind Castillo. I don't mind trading him.
I don't mind trading him, but I don't like trading him for garbage that we're stuck with 2 years later, like
Yeah.
Mitch. And I don't mean to call Mitch garbage, but his performance has been bad.
Well,
I like him, but
I think you pick up the phone and I think the first. I don't know if you get a guy. Well, I mean, I'd have to look at their roster. I don't know what young guy you could get off the Dodgers roster or a prospect off their team. But I think you look at LA and you call them up right away. I mean, you got to look at teams that are void of starting pitching, and the Dodgers are number one, even though they're a couple of wins away from going to the World Series. They don't have elite starting pitching, which is amazing to me.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think they would. You got to look at them because they're willing to take on the salary, and that salary is not a big deal to him, and really shouldn't be a big deal to anyone because of what you'd owe him anyways, and how he produces. But because they have a very good farm system, you could get some talent out of there. I think it's National League, so you get them out of the league if that's important to you, or you call up the Yankees as well. I mean, I think another scenario like that, but. In a perfect world, yeah, I wouldn't trade him, but you're kind of left in this situation where you need to add some offense. And, I think he would probably be the best option because the younger guys are so cheap and young, and you want to keep on to those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as far as keeping people, I haven't seen anybody say this, but I'm starting to question, given that Glaber Torres is such a low chance of them signing, but what are the odds they pick up Polanco for another year just because there's no other option?
I mean, I think I'd be stunned if they picked him up.
I would
Wouldn't
be
you?
too, but I've been looking at this for like 4 days straight, and I'm like, who the hell's going to replace him? unless they do a trade. And the only trade I can think of that's actually viable is Castillo going to Chicago because they are going to lose Kyle Hendricks, who cost them 16 mil and had a 5+ ERA with a 4 wins and like 12 losses. And we get Nico Horner.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they'll come up with another solution if they bring back Polanco. They just can't. They cannot pick up that option.
Especially
They
with
can't.
his surgery. Like, I don't
They
trust
can't.
that.
No, I mean he's old and surgery. I mean, it obviously gives you
He's
an
1 year
indication of,
older than me.
yeah, he gives you an indication of how he struggled this year. And I mean, I guess the old baseball tipped the cap to him that he played through that. But no, I mean not for 12 million, right? Is that the option? 12 million to pick up a guy that had a poor season in the field with the bat. You don't know how he's going to respond to that surgery. I would pass. I think they'll pass too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll pass, but at the same time I'm scared at like how else who else, unless they go down this rabbit hole of Tampa Bay trades and they
Yeah,
get Brandon Lau.
sure. Just get
So
yeah, just get everybody from the Rays.
I mean, on like that, I feel like that's all they did. What with the beginning? So this last winter, Jose Cabanero went over there. Then trade deadline, it's Randy Arozarena comes this way.
Well,
What's next? Like Yandy Diaz is now going to be our first baseman. I know Locked On Mariners are obsessed with that. They think that's the only thing that's viable. But I mean, I personally would much rather see this guy who had the same numbers as pretty much Cal Raleigh this year come back. I mean, that was back in 22. He had the similar numbers, just low 200s average, but he hit home runs and he had a high slugging.
sure.
Santana.
Yeah.
And he's only 5 mil. And he's probably worth less because his age.
Yeah. I mean, Carlos Santana, I mean, that was probably, one of the biggest issues. At least, I know Julio loved playing with Carlos Santana. I mean, that was, but again, look at these guys that we're talking about. I mean, Carlos Santana,
Yeah.
JD Martinez, Solano. I mean, just old guys.
Old guys.
Yeah. It's just,
And there's no young guys. And the young guys nobody wants to let go of if they have club control.
Yeah.
Or they want you to give up one of your rotation guys. And the only issue, and I'll kind of close it out with this. The only issue with giving up any of our starting rotation right now is that there's nobody really to fill in that fifth slot. Yeah, you have Hancock. I personally don't trust him on the mound. You have Logan Evans, who's untested, and from what I understand, is going back and forth between reliever and starter, reliever and starter. And it's like they can't make up their mind what they're going to do with him. That doesn't make me feel better about it.
right.
Who else? Who else are we gonna throw out there for the number 5? Or are we gonna be like, hey, you 4 that's left, you're young. You have a 4-man rotation.
I don't pretend to sit there and know exactly everything that they have in their minor league system. I would just say that the one area that they do so well in is pitching. I mean, maybe they don't have someone as good as the 4 they have now, but they find people. They find people left and right. And I mean, 4. If you have 4 guys, okay. I mean, we can string together a 5th guy. No one has what they had last year, having all 5 guys like that. So. If they were to find somebody else that they could kind of slide in there, which would almost be like a traditional, 5th starter in your rotation who's, not that good, like most every single other baseball team has, I can live with that. But they just generally find these guys, whether they draft them, sign them, or develop them. They're really, really good at that. They're just not good on the offensive side, or at least to this point haven't shown the ability to do that yet.
They did great at the beginning of the season when it was cold. Made no sense to us. But it fell off when it got warm. So it's like you can't blame anything anymore because
right.
They contradict themselves every time you find, oh, this is the problem, here's our solution.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
That's kind of the route I go with that. I mean, I don't know. Final thoughts. What do you think the record's going to be next year?
Oh, already into records, huh?
Oh, hell yeah. Before we even know what they're going to do, let's just see.
I don't know. I mean, 83 and 79.
Down.
Yeah, I mean, right around there. I mean, 83 wins, 84 wins. I mean, they're not going to improve. I just think they're going to bring back the same guys and hope that everyone has better seasons. I think that's the strategy.
Yeah, if you call that a strategy.
Well, that's their strategy for sure.
But I also think that if you're right, if you're right, 85 wins. I think if they can be consistent and not have a slump for 2 months, my birthday was the last day that they had a 10-game lead on Houston. And Houston, this next year, is losing a lot of players. Their budget cuts to talk, all this stuff. I think that they might actually get lucky and have the red carpet laid out for them, and 85 wins actually would win a division. If the rest of the league is still playing like they did this year, Oakland, I guess not Oakland, Sacramento, they're like probably the only threat.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I mean, the red carpet was there from this year.
Which,
Yeah.
like, just can't believe it. So, thank you, Jason. I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, you got it, Chad.
For
Thank
this
you very much for
episode.
coming.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can do it again. And if you get any insight, shoot me a text.
Gotcha. No problem.
All right.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thank you.